At a press conference on October 2nd, 2008, Mansur stated that Islam is my private life, my conscience, but my faith does not take precedence over my duties to Canada and its constitution, which I embrace freely. I am first and most importantly a Canadian. Only in a free society will you find Islam as a faith and not a political religion. It is statements like these that solidify his well-earned reputation as one of the most credible and passionate defenders of liberal democracies in general and Israel in particular. And we are very thankful for his presence here. So please join me in welcoming Salim Mansur.
I think the Jews are the most politically incorrect people ever in the history of mankind. So I think I'm following good path and good example. So whatever I want to have to say this evening, share with you the little time that we have and share my thoughts with you, and I don't want to barge myself into the good rabbi's portion of this evening. The little that I have to share with you is my reading, my views as a person of the Islamic faith, as a Muslim. But most people do not understand. And we are today living at a time, there have been other times equally pernicious and probably more pernicious. For the people of the Jewish faith, of course, the 1930s, and there are often reflection about we're living through déjà vu, another time that is analogous to the 1930s. But for the Jewish people, they know that possibly 1930s was the worst of time in 4 millennium of Jewish history. And God forbid that we have to repeat those times again. But the point that I'm driving at is that we are living in very bad times, and there's no question about this. And Melanie Phillip, a writer that I read and admire, lucid, wonderful, she in one of her, in fact in her recent book, the title of that book is Upside Down. We live in an upside down world where peace is war and war is peace, and politics is religion and religion is politics. And what was Orwell's imagination in 1984, his novel, has turned out that we are living it. Words have become unhinged from its fundamental meaning, corrupted, destroyed. And in some small way, I've been writing about that. And so, politics is religion and religion is politics. This is not a new phenomenon, but in our time it's a very troubling phenomenon because we do not know how to deal with this issue. And Islam today has been, in a way, confounded and abused and perverted, not by anybody else, but by Muslims themselves, because of the inversion of all the entire meaning. Just before I was coming here, it so happened that I received on my internet feed Barry Rubin, Professor Barry Rubin's most recent essay. I met Professor Barry Rubin last year when I was in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. He makes his home in Tel Aviv, and we had a lovely time. We went out on several occasions for lunch, and he took me down once for ice cream, his favorite ice cream, on a Tel Aviv corner, and it was lovely. Anyhow, his recent essay, he just popped up, and I was in my office, and I quickly scanned through it, and one line stuck in my head. And the line that stuck in my head, Barry was talking about, Professor Rubin was talking about the recent events in Toulouse, France. And he mentions that while we may or may not understand and we totally reject the people drunken with hate in the name of a religion doing the sort of thing that they have been doing in this particular case, the massacre and the killing of a 29-year-old rabbi and his 2 little children. What is even more pernicious are the people in very sober environments sitting and trying to find justification for it. And Baroness Ashton in the very sober environment of the House of Lords, immediately jumped up and said that this is something which Toulouse reminds her of Gaza, and the equivalence was drawn. That's the dangerous time that we're living in. That in the fog and mist of hate, bigotry, we cannot, it's like driving through a heavily misty road, cannot see ahead what it is there. The Muslims today, almost without exception, I must say, because the voices of those who would stand up and speak are being suffocated, silenced, killed in the Arab Muslim world. There are 2 mosques over here in this city. I cannot go to either of them because none will invite me and none will sit and discuss with me. That they don't understand. Because if they did understand, there would be no quarrel between Muslims and Jews, because there can't be no quarrel. Because if logically, on the matter of faith, Quran is the word of God, then there is nothing more clear than the Quran itself saying what it says about the Jews and their place in the Holy Land. It is so clear, so precise, and so categorical that one has to really deep and think hard. How could Arabs and Muslims behave the way they are behaving? Just as one has to sit and think hard. How could a culture that produced Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and Einstein and Goethe and Hess and Rilke could then create the concentration camps and Auschwitz and Dachau and Buchenwald? How can you reconcile those 2 things?